Okay, friends, so I want to begin with the first question. I purposely chose this question as the first question because it speaks of the meaning of these days and the relevant life lessons that we can learn from them. So this is the question. Dear Rabbi, can you please speak about the meaning and lessons of the next few days? I believe that tonight is Hoshana Rabbah and tomorrow night begins Shmini Atzeret and Simchat Torah. Can you please tell us what these days are all about? So, yes, let's delve right into it. Let's speak about the meaning of these next few days, which really culminate the high holiday season as we have come to know it. So tonight and tomorrow is the 7th day of Sukkot, which is also referred to as Hoshana Rabbah. Hoshana Rabbah means the great Hoshana. Hoshana, the word Hoshana, really refers to the prayer of Hoshana, which means save us, redeem us. But it is a prayer that we say each and every day of Sukkot, as we surround the bima with our four species, with our lulav and etrog. Now, on the 7th day of Sukkot, we surround the bima 7 times. And that's why it's called a great Hoshana. That prayer is a great prayer, great Hoshana, because again, we do this 7 times. Why do we surround the bima 7 times of Hoshana Rabbah, and what's the meaning of this day altogether? Well, we surround the bima 7 times tomorrow morning. By the way, we'll have also in-person and Zoom services at the same time, simultaneously at 7 a.m. tomorrow. Everyone is welcome. But we do that because that was the custom during the times of the temple, in which we surrounded the Mizbeach 7 times. During the times of the temple, there would be big, large willows on the sides of the altar. And the altar was surrounded 7 times on Hoshana Rabbah because the number 7 is a number of completion, and it signifies the completion of Sukkot, the completion of not just the festival, but also of all the blessings of Sukkot, and therefore we surround the bima 7 times. It's also, by the way, the completion, not just of this festival of Sukkot, but as our Kabbalists teach us and emphasize, it's the completion really of the seal of the judgment that began on Rosh Hashanah. As we all know, Rosh Hashanah is the day of judgment, and that's when God sat as a judge and judged everyone, every creature, the entire world. And on Yom Kippur, many of us were sealed in the good books, but the sealing, or at least the execution of the judgment, is not completed until Hoshana Rabbah, until tonight and tomorrow. And therefore, there is a beautiful custom that people wish each other on this 7th day of Sukkot, a pitka tava, which means a good note. And that is that final note, whatever it may be, that final note of judgment should be tava, should be a good one. Again, the culmination of those prayers in which we beg God to seal us in all of the good books and execute that judgment starting from tonight onwards throughout the year is really expressed best in the Hoshana Rabbah prayer when we surround the bima 7 times, as mentioned. I want to speak of another custom, and that is that tonight, really, there is a custom among many Hasidic circles that people don't sleep. It's almost like the night of Shavuot. People don't sleep in anticipation of this judgment, of the sealing of this judgment. And we, again, some people study Tehillim or recite Tehillim all night long tonight. I know that Rabbi Steinsaltz would give, and I had the privilege of attending it a few times, but would give a class on Tehillim all night long on Hoshana Rabbah without sleeping at all. For him, it was an easy feat because he wouldn't sleep anyhow. So he was as awake at 4 a.m. teaching Tehillim as he would be in the middle of the day. But that's one of the customs. Another custom on Hoshana Rabbah, which is in fact more than a custom because it dates back to the times of the Mishnah already. And that is that we take 5 willow branches at the end of the service tomorrow. And I know it actually speaks to one of the questions tonight. So maybe I'll try to relate to that question in the segment here, answering the previous question. But we take 5 willow branches, and at the end of the Hoshanot, of the 7th rounds, we take those 5 willow branches and smack them 5 times on the ground. Why do we do that? What's that custom all about? Well, that's what they did in the temple. But again, why did they do that in the temple? There's multiple reasons, but the Kabbalistic reason, which is really maybe the source of it all, is because those 5 willow branches represent the 5 levels of justice, or as they are known in Kabbalah, Gvurot, 5 Gvurot, 5 levels of justice. And we ask God on this day in which he seals the judgment to take that justice, those 5 levels of justice, and break them a little bit, break that justice, sweeten the justice. So we smack those willow branches 5 times, almost as plead to God, please, whatever justice you may have, if you look at us severely and firmly, then break that severity a little bit. Be a more kind, more compassionate towards us, towards your people, and towards the world. What are the 5 levels of justice, which was the question? And that is the 5 levels of severity. Really, they are rooted, it's interesting, they are rooted in our speech. In Hebrew, there are 5 letters that cut the flow of the air as we try to speak. Not cut here, but initially cut at the source, at the throat. They cut those 5 levels of the air. That they cut. There are 5 letters that cut the flow of the air. What are the letters? Aleph, A. A takes what would come out as a blow, but cuts it. A, or maybe the A is the parallel letter in the English alphabet. You have the Chet, which really, as the Sephardic pronounce it, they come from, the Chet comes from the ground. Het, again, you have a blockage, a little bit of the air there. Then you have the Hey, which is not just the flow of air, but because you're using your voice, it's like the H. But that also blocks a little bit the air from the source. Then you have the Ain, also pronounced in the Sephardic way, is Ain. You actually hear the throat, so that cuts also the flow of the air at the source. And then you have the Gimel, which really, as the Yemenite pronounce it, it comes also from the throat, almost like when you're cleaning your throat with water, right? We sometimes do that. That also comes from the throat, the Gimel, and that also cuts the hair. So really relates to those 5 speeches. It's expressed in those 5 speeches. In Kabbalah, those 5 letters also represent 5 levels of justice. And in any case, on Hoshana Rabbah, we take those 5 willow branches and we smack them to the ground, saying to God, please smack your severity, also smack your judgment, and be a little more compassionate and kind as you seal us. That's Hoshana Rabbah. That's tonight and tomorrow. Now, on Hoshana Rabbah also, we it's also worth mentioning, this is the last day in which we shake the lulav. It's just worth mentioning because as it is for any item that is used for a mitzvah, we can't just throw away the lulav tomorrow after we finished using it. What we should do with the 4 species is use them for yet another mitzvah. Recycle the mitzvah into another mitzvah. How so? Well, the etrog is very often used to make jelly. My wife makes jelly. If you don't know what to do with your etrog, you can give it to my wife and she'll make an etrog jelly out of it, so that when we eat the jelly, we say the blessing over the jelly. And again, we use the etrog for yet another mitzvah of saying a blessing. By the way, there is this idea that the etrog, the jelly, heals the body, because again, the etrog was used for a mitzvah. So it's when you eat the jelly, you're absorbing that special mitzvah, and it's good particularly for pregnant women. That's what you do with the etrog. What you do with the lulav and the arava, also the willow branch, is that you keep them for the burning of the chametz on Passover. It's a mitzvah to burn the chametz on the eve of Passover, so you keep them for that. The myrtle is used for besamim, for the spices of the Havdalah, to again recycle the mitzvah into yet another mitzvah of doing besamim at the end of each and every Shabbat during the ceremony of the Havdalah. So that's just worth mentioning. It's what we do on Hoshana Rabbah with the 4 species. Okay.
Rabbi,
Yes,
I was just going to say that in my younger days, when we used to have a sukkah and we used to have the lulav and etrog, we would use the lulav when when Aaron was little, we would hide bread all over, and we would use the lulav to collect all the bread.
Okay, there you go. That's another way to use it for yet another mitzvah.
We did that, and then we burned it. So, and then the etrog, I used to just put aside, and I've got all the etrogim in my Chicago home.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. Okay, good. You should make a jelly out of that.
It's too
Okay.
late now. It's too
Or
late.
use it for another mitzvah. Fine, fine. You can use it for Besami, maybe. Okay. All right. So that's Hoshana Rabbah. Tomorrow night and Shabbat. And then on Sunday, we have 2 days of Yom Tov outside of Israel. In Israel, those 2 days are combined into one, which will be really Shabbat. So those 2 days are called Shmini Atzeret and Simchat Torah. Shmini Atzeret and Simchat Torah, as mentioned, are combined in Israel, but they represent this idea of Atzeret. The name Atzeret is in the festival, Shmini Atzeret. The word Atzeret. Atzeret in Hebrew means to stop. Why? Because this is the festival in which God says, stop everyone, stop. During the times of the temple, all nations could bring sacrifice to the temple. The temple was a very happening place. Sukkot is a very happening place. We go out to the world, we build a sukkah, we bring the holiness of God in the world, and we're busy spreading divinity in the world. On Shmini Atzeret, the very conclusion of this, God says, stop, stop. Before you go back to your homes, before you go back to your daily lives, before you now face the year and the nitty-gritty details of the year, just stop, come with me. Let's spend some time intimately together, just you and I. The nations of the world are gone in the times of the temple. Sukkot is over. Atzeret, come, just you and me. It's almost like when you have guests over at your home for Shabbat dinner, and you make yourself the best host in the world, and at the end all the guests leave, and you tell your wife, you know what, just me and you. Now let's just bond together. Let's have tea together, and let's just exercise our love. That's what Shmini Atzeret is. What God says to the Jewish people, Ikvu imina od yom echad, in the words of the Talmud, and Rashi quotes them. Kasher alai pridatchem, it's very hard for me to see you go. Just stay with me. I love you. Just stay with me, me and you, intimately. That's what Shmini Atzeret and Simchat Torah is all about. That's why we dance with the Torah also. That's why there's Simchat Torah on Shmini Atzeret. Not just because, it's part of the reason, not just because we're concluding the whole cycle of the reading of the Torah and we're starting the Torah anew, but also because what we're doing is that we're focusing on our love, on that intimate love between us and God, between God and us. What's the best way to focus on that love is to take out our marital contract, our ketubah. What is a ketubah? The Torah itself. That's the ketubah that God gave us when he came down Mount Sinai to give us the Torah. He said, yeah, this proves that we're married. If you follow this, that means you're married to me. And we dance with the Torah and we say, God, we're so happy to be married to you. We love you so much. That's what Shmini Atzeret really is all about. It's a very intimate, very special, very soulful holiday in which way really we bask in the love of God and the love of our relationship. Shmini Atzeret. And we dance with the Torah. By the way, that explains why, if we're so happy about the Torah, why don't we read the Torah? Why don't we study the Torah like we do on Shavuot all night long? Why do we dance with the Torah when it's completely closed? I don't even know what's inside. That's because we're not celebrating the content of the Torah. What we're celebrating is the significance of the Torah. What's the significance of the Torah? That it's a proof that we're married to God. I don't need to read. It's my proof. Let a lawyer read it. That's something else. Or maybe that's for a different time. That's for Shavuot. Now I'm just celebrating my love. That proves that I'm married to God. So I'm dancing with the Torah. It gives me the greatest joy. That's really what we do on Simchat Torah. So yes, we conclude the Torah too. And it's a beautiful moment in which we not only conclude the Torah, but immediately after to show our enthusiasm and our passion for studying Torah and for connecting to the Word of God and binding our minds with God's mind, so to speak, we immediately start anew with Bereshit, the very first portion. But the essence of it, again, this is a love fest. That's what it is. A love fest between us and God, between God and us. That's what Shmini Atzeret is all about. Okay. All right, there was the other question. I'm moving on to the next questions. There was the other question about the 5 willow branches on Hoshana Rabbah, but I hope I was able to answer that. And if you have more questions, feel free to ask them too. Okay, next question. So this is about now Sukkot more. So I have a question about Sukkot. Why is it sometimes called the Feast of the Tabernacles? Why does it say build yourself tabernacles? Isn't there one holy Mishkan, one holy tabernacle, God's tabernacle? I get confused when I see that name, Celebration of the Tabernacles. I feel like it might be Christian translated. Is it wrong? Is it Christian? Sukkah is God's hug. And the tabernacle is where God's holy Shekhinah presence dwells. And there should be only one Mishkan. So you're right. It's misguiding. That translation I also never liked. That it's the Festival of Tabernacles. Sukkot is known as the Festival of Tabernacles. Because really there's only one tabernacle, as you justly point out. That is the tabernacle that we built for God in the desert during our 40-year journey. And that came with us into Israel, into the city of Shiloh. And today you can go to Shiloh and see exactly where the tabernacle stood erect in that beautiful city of Shiloh. But that's the only tabernacle that we know of. But I believe that there was, again, a mistranslation here. Festival of Tabernacle. Tabernacle, it refers not to the holy tabernacle that you're referring to, but really refers to just edifices called tabernacles. It's really our huts. There's nothing holy in them. And those huts, I mean, when you build them for yourselves on Sukkot, it becomes holy. It's a mitzvah, so it becomes holy. But first the huts. So it's the Festival of Tabernacles, Chag HaSukkot, because it's when we are asked to build huts in commemoration of the huts that we build in the desert and of the clouds of glory, as we spoke about too, that surrounded us during those 40 years in the journey. So in the desert, in the 40-year journey in the desert. So it's a mistranslation, I would say, and I agree with you. It shouldn't be called the Festival of Tabernacles, maybe the Festival of Huts. I'll use another word. Tabernacle, if we're really thinking about the word tabernacle, there's only one Mishkan, and that's the Mishkan that you refer to. Okay, next question. And this is the last question really for this week. I know it's Sukkot, so maybe people are busy, but I encourage you to send me more and more questions. I love your questions, and I try to address them every Thursday night, as you know. So this is the last question for tonight. Is it normal, dear Rabbi, is it normal to have, I'm going to jump a little. So is it normal to have doubts during an engagement? My friends tell me I should be 100% certain that I have made the right decision, but I would be lying if I said I had no doubts. Is it a bad sign if I'm just not sure? So this person just got engaged, and I know you well, and Mazel Tov, and now you have doubts, and your friends tell you that you should be 100% certain. So is it a bad sign? And maybe the next question would be, if it's a bad sign, should you break your engagement? So I would say this, just to condense the answer into this idea. I think there are two types of doubts. There are doubts that should make you feel good about your marriage, about getting married, and maybe just confirm the fact that you have to get married. And there are doubts that maybe should question your engagement. Doubts that are negative. There are doubts that are positive and doubts that are negative. The doubts that are positive really stem from this big idea that I found actually in the letter of Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev, who was a great Hasidic master, to his son after his engagement. He too had the same doubts. Maybe not the same. I don't know what type of doubts. I'm happy to speak to you more about this. But he too had doubts about his engagement, about his upcoming marriage. Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev writes him in this most magnificent and Kabbalistic letter. He writes to him, well, these doubts really come from your soul. Your soul has been apart from its other half for so long. And now it has to upgrade from that status of being a half to being a whole. It's going into what it believes is the unknown, even though it's really known before you were created. So just like you're about to go to a good vacation, and you know it's a good vacation for you. I mean, that's not the analogy Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev uses, but to elaborate on it. Just like you know it's the place you want, but you still have some feelings, maybe I shouldn't go. It's that unknown. Then it's a sign really that these are good doubts. These are positive doubts, because really it's a sign that your soul is calling to you, saying that, oh, I'm going to get married to my other half. I'm changing my status. My whole status up until now was a half. And now, I know you're in your 30s. So for 30 plus years, you've been living as a half. And now you have to upgrade to a whole. So automatically it's going to give you some sensations of doubts. And those are positive doubts. The negative doubts are doubts where you start asking yourself whether you are really marrying the right person. Maybe you have questions about his character. That could be concerning. Maybe you maybe found out things that about this person that you didn't know, negative things that you didn't know before. Those are negative doubts. Those are things that you really have to answer before jumping into marriage. But if they are just doubts that you feel as you go to sleep at night and you don't know, and maybe I'm doing these, don't worry, it's a sign that you are getting married to the right person, because it's your soul getting so excited that it will finally become a whole again. It will finally find its bashert and complete itself. Now, I'll give you a little tip. And I think that maybe this is one tool of knowing whether your doubts are positive and therefore you should move ahead with your marriage without thinking about this too much, or negative. And that tip is, let me know how you feel when you are with this man that you got engaged to. If when you are with that person, those doubts dissipate, you feel like your soul is one, then you're having positive doubts. If you are with this person and you start questioning the person, gosh, I'm looking at him now from a distance and I feel uncomfortable around this person in some shape or form, then maybe these are negative doubts, and maybe you should be asking the real questions and getting to the bottom of them and clarifying them. So that's just a little tip, a little tool to use. Think about those doubts when you are with that person. If they dissipate, then it's a sign that those are positive doubts. If you only have them at night when you go to sleep or when you're all alone, but when you're with that person, they don't exist, it's a great sign. If you are with that person, those doubts still exist, and you're questioning the person himself, then really you have to answer those questions before moving forward.